Wherever it is that you need a breakthrough in your life, what we're discovering in this time together, this collection of sermons as a church, is that the key is faithfulness, not force. If you and I would learn how to have the faith to keep showing up, God can do what only God can do in areas of our lives that we honestly thought we needed more resource, we needed more ability, we needed more time. God can do what only He can do. He can bring breakthrough to your life if you'll bring the faithfulness and keep showing up. This title of our series that we are in right now, Keep Showing Up, really is the key to breakthrough in your life, my life, in anybody's life. Keep showing up. When you feel like it, keep showing up. And when you don't feel like it, keep showing up. When things are good for you in your world, keep showing up. When things start to overwhelm you because of what's going on in the world, keep showing up. And today I want to turn our attention to a what many would think of as spiritual aspect of our lives, but yet it's an aspect of our lives spiritually and personally that affects all of us that sometimes we wrestle and struggle with breakthrough in. Today I want to bring attention and even encourage you to keep showing up and experience breakthrough in prayer. Now, there are few disciplines that Jesus assumed upon his followers, but praying was one of them. He had this way of saying it. When you read the Gospels, you will see this, that he will allude to the fact that when you do this thing, fasting is one of those. He said, when you fast, fast like this. And he gave instruction on it. He said the same thing about prayer over and over and over again. When you pray, pray like this. And we see this statement, when you pray, which is assuming this idea coming out of Jesus that, like, of course the people that bear my name are going to pray. Of course the people that I live on the inside of them by my spirit, they going to pray. Of course my followers, of course those championing the cause of the church, they are going to be people of prayer when you pray. But the truth is, most of us don't pray like Jesus instructed. And when I say that, I mean less framework and more faithfulness. See, sometimes when we think praying like Jesus would pray, our mind would initially go to maybe his model prayer to us that some of us call the Lord's Prayer. Our Father in heaven, hallowed be your name. And that prayer, that structure is a powerful thing and something that we should take to heart, but that's not what I mean today. Some of us, when we think of the framework of prayer, we think of praying in the right fashion or praying in the right order or praying with the right velocity and volume. And then God's going to hear us and then God's going to do. I'm not talking about a framework to prayer on today. Please understand. I think where we miss the mark, where Jesus would be surprised that most of us don't pray like he instructed, has more to do with our faithfulness to pray. The consistency to keep showing up when it concerns praying. If you're taking notes today, I'd love for you to write this down. That you need more faith to keep praying than you do to start praying. It takes some measure, some level of faith to start praying about anything. Something big, something small, something you can't quite figure out, something that you know, unless God intervenes, everything is going to fall apart. It takes some measure of faith to start praying. But it takes a whole nother level of faith to keep praying. Because what happens in our mind and in our heart and in our soul and our emotions is we start to feel like we've prayed enough, that we've asked enough, that it should have happened by now in the way that I wanted it to happen by now. But may I ask you to think for a second, when were people of faith ever told you've prayed enough? Like, you just slow down with your praying. You know what? I think you've handled the praying side of things to its fullest and maximum extent. Never. In fact, Paul tells the church at Thessalonica in his writing, he says to pray without ceasing. That doesn't mean to never stop praying. It means that we shouldn't ever quit praying. Keep showing up. My encouragement for you today is that we would be people who keep asking God with all the faith that he is working, because he is. That we would be people who pray with faith filled on the inside of us, believing that God is working, expecting for him to work because he is. And to take us on this journey today, I want to look at a story that on its surface is quite honestly crazy that it's even in the Bible. For real. But I believe the fact that it's there not only authenticates Jesus and who he is and what he can do and what he has done and what he will do and what he wants to do in your life, but it also authenticates the veracity, the truthfulness of the New Testament as a whole. Sometimes I believe that we think of the Bible as like this puff piece about God. Like it's all the good things about God. It's all the good stories about God. That they're trying to frame Jesus, the writers are, in this certain light. And so we're going to leave out the stuff that might be damaging to the type of character we're trying to portray. And we're only going to fill it with things that sort of fit the agenda. This story doesn't fit in that filter if that's your picture of the scripture. It really shows us how truthful these writers were. They weren't trying to create some puff piece. They were literally trying to communicate the story of Jesus. And they would tell all kinds of stuff, including this. Because this story, when you look at it on the surface, particularly through the lens of our current way of thinking, particularly through the lens of not understanding for some of us the customs and the norms of Jewish culture 2,000 years ago, it's honestly a little unbecoming of Jesus until you get it. And so today we're going to read this and begin to unpack and extrapolate for us today the faith that we need to keep showing up and praying. Believing that God is working because he is. Come on, if you're ready to study God's word together, and woo, are we going to do work today? With somebody in that chat, just say, I'm ready, I'm ready, I'm ready. Matthew chapter 15 is where we are going to be today, but this account, to prove its veracity as well, is also recorded by the gospel writer in the book of Mark. We're just going to lean into, for our reading's sake, Matthew chapter 15, starting at verse 21, reading to verse 28. It says, when Jesus left there, he withdrew to the area of Tyre and Sidon. Just then, a Canaanite woman from that region came and kept crying out, have mercy on me, Lord, Son of David. My daughter is severely tormented by a demon. Jesus did not say a word to her. His disciples approached him, urged him, send her away because she's crying out after us. He replied, I was sent only to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. He replied to his disciples. But she came, knelt before him, and said, Lord, help me. He answered her, it isn't right to take the children's bread and throw it to the dogs. Told you it was unbecoming on the surface. Yes, Lord, she said. Yet even the dogs eat the crumbs that fall from their master's table. Then Jesus replied to her, woman, your faith is great. Let it be done for you as you want. And from that moment, her daughter was healed. This interaction is loaded with instruction and with implication, giving us this charge. Keep praying. Keep praying. Oh, we're going to break this apart and we're going to walk through it here for a moment. And I pray not only do you understand the text a little better after our time is done, but I pray you also understand what this looks like for your own faith. But the charge is clear from the start to the finish, from then to now. Keep praying. Somebody in that chat just needs to type, keep praying, because breakthrough is happening here on multiple levels, all centered around the faith of one woman who doesn't even come from the household of faith that she was supposed to in their eyes, that she was supposed to by normal customs in that day. But her faith kept showing up. Her faith continued to press in. Her faith kept praying, and she became the conduit that Jesus was able to bless, change, teach, and correct all the people around her. And I say that to you today because I know some of you leaning in right now, you wouldn't necessarily call yourself a person of prayer. Like, you pray from time to time, the occasional meal when something real big is going on and you just don't know what to do with it. It seems like, oh, maybe I should pray. I get it. Some of you are people who pray. You would at least call yourself that. But sometimes you wonder if anything's even happening. Sometimes you really question in your heart of hearts, is God doing anything? Like, is anything going on? Am I praying because it makes myself feel better? Am I praying because this is how I was raised? Am I praying because this is what I was told to do? Am I praying because it makes me feel spiritual? But I don't necessarily see anything happen. I don't know if this works. Hear me today before we even begin to unpack this. God is working when you're praying. God is working when you're praying. And what I want to do is not leave any stone unturned. What I want to do is not allow the cloud to linger over your head, but I want to show you how he's working. And I want to show you where he's working. And as we look at how he's working and where he's working and who he's working in and where he's working on in this story, maybe your eyes will be able to see in your own life today that God is working when you're praying. So let's break this down together. If you got your notes available on our website, or maybe you're choosing to write a few things down, would you jot these down today? Because my encouragement to you is to be a person who keeps praying, because God is working on others. Keep praying. God is working on others. Have you ever thought that maybe your prayers to God weren't about the object of your prayers? I mean, typically if you or I are praying, there is something or someone we are praying for. God, fix this. God, heal them. God, provide for us. God, could you work this thing out? There is an object to our prayers. But have you ever paused for a second to think that maybe, just maybe, that to God, the object of your prayers isn't really the main thing to him? That maybe, just maybe, God wants to do in you and through you something that isn't just about you getting what you want, or you getting what you're praying for, you getting what you're asking for, but maybe it's about what he wants to do in others, through others, and for others through your prayers. That maybe God is using your praying not just to bring about the answer to your request, but to do something in some other people in your life, to do something in some other people in the neighborhood, in your city, in your community, under your influence, under your purview, that maybe you don't see as you pray, but it is what he's working on and what he has set out to do from the beginning. I need you to know that as we read this story in Matthew 15, and also as Mark would record it, that the primary students in this story, as Jesus is teaching in this moment, isn't the woman, it's his disciples. Jesus is trying to teach a thing here. And the primary person he's trying to educate is not the woman who becomes the center figure of the story, is not the woman begging, is not the woman calling out, is not the woman with the prayer request. It is his own disciples. Jesus used this moment to challenge and change the attitude and even the prejudices of his own disciples towards Gentiles and towards women. You see, literally just before these verses in Matthew chapter 15, Jesus is teaching about what it is that defiles a person. You can read it for yourself. It's literally right before this. And he's explaining that what contaminates a person is not the stuff that people see. Because so often what people do, we even do this today, is we judge people based on what we see. And so we see someone acting a way, we see someone who does a thing, we see someone, and because of what they may have around them, or where you may find them, or what you may hear come out of that, all of a sudden you have put something on them, and you said they are a defiled person. They don't do the right thing. They don't dress the right way. They don't look the right way. They don't sound like someone who honors God. And we put a label on them, and Jesus is saying right before this, no, you need to understand. It is not what is outside that defiles a person. It's what's going on in your hearts. This was a big deal to Jesus. In other places, he would literally call religious leaders very derogatory names. And he would call them this because he would say, look, you are so concerned with cleaning the outside of the vessel, but yet the inside is full of cobwebs and dead men's bones, that you are very careful about how you appear to others, and you are not very careful with what's going on the inside. It is that kind of language, it is that kind of thought, it is that teaching that Jesus is doing right before we get to where we focused on in this interaction in Matthew 15. Jesus is saying, listen, it is not what is going on that people can see that defiles you. It's what's going on the inside. And Jews for thousands of years at the time of Jesus and believed that these Gentiles, as this woman was, the Canaanite woman, as some people call her, the Syrophoenician woman, as others would call her, same woman, from Tyre and Sidon, not from where you were supposed to be. This Gentile woman, if I could speak it so frankly, to them was a piece of trash. That's the way they viewed her. Because first of all, she was a Gentile, uncircumcised. Gentiles eat things that make them unholy. Gentiles don't practice, don't pray like we do, Gentiles. And not only was she a Gentile, she was a woman, which from a class perspective was set so low in that day that the disciples carried these perspectives and prejudices with them. But Jesus sees in this Gentile woman her love for her daughter and her confidence in him. And he allows her to be the teacher that his disciples need. Jesus knows, because he's Jesus, that the faith that's in her towards him is something he can use. And he wants it to be a testimony of faith, a testimony of persistence in prayer to his disciples. Sometimes you and I think God is ignoring us, just like it seems on the surface that he's ignoring this woman. Son of David, have mercy on me. Why doesn't Jesus answer her? When she's calling out over and over and over again. He said, she's calling it. Yeah. The disciples get so annoyed. They're like, Jesus, tell her to stop. She's calling out over and over and over again. Help me. But yet, Jesus ignores her. He answers her not a word. Sometimes when we find ourselves praying, we can feel much like this woman. Calling out to God, saying what we think are all the right things, with all the right volume and all the right places, but it feels like he's ignoring us. Sometimes we think God is ignoring us, but maybe he's not ignoring us. Maybe he's addressing them. See, when you see your praying as something more than just being about what God is doing in and on the thing you're praying for, then maybe you can build the faith to keep praying with faithfulness, knowing that God might be working on others through you. God might be using your faith, your fervency, your tenacity, your commitment to keep showing up and pray, to keep calling on him. Not just to do what it is you think you need, but to do what he knows is needed in the lives of others around you. I think one of the most revered stereotypes of a person who prays for most of us, whether we had this or not, is what we might call a praying mother or a praying grandmother. I don't know if you had a praying mom or a praying grandmother, but if you did, you ought to consider yourself blessed. Because when we think of this stereotype, what we are thinking of, if somebody says, maybe you would even say, oh yeah, I had a praying mom. What you probably mean is that there was a season of your life where you were going really, really far from God. You was doing your own thing, acting your own way, not concerned about God and his purposes, not concerned really about anybody but yourself. You was going to do you. It was going to be all about you. But there was something about your grandmother, something about your mother that kept praying for you. You was a fool, but she kept praying for you. You didn't want nothing to do with God, but she kept praying for you. And maybe now you find yourself in a place where you're following God and there's something in you that is grateful for her prayers. Well, maybe it's her prayers that kept you tethered, but have you ever thought about what her prayers for you while you was a fool were doing for others? I've got people in my life, I've had people in my life who you could define as praying mothers, praying for their sons, praying for their daughters. And I can think of more than a few occasions where it's like, I knew them and I also knew their son, or I also knew their daughter. And their children was a fool, like a F-O-O-O, like they was a fool, acting a fool, living a fool, like just a total fool. But mama kept praying. And I know for me, and even for others, that their commitment to pray challenged me in my praying. Because I don't know if you've ever, maybe this sounds too unspiritual for you, but sometimes you'll see somebody praying for somebody and you're like, oh, that's neat and that's nice, but you're like, they ain't never going to change. But their praying does something in me. Their commitment to keep bringing before God the people that they love, bringing before God their sons and their daughters, their grandsons and their granddaughters, their nieces, their nephews, and say, God, you do what only you can do. They are the praying type. And they don't stop praying. Regardless of the outcome, they don't stop praying. Regardless of whether their son changes or not, they don't stop praying. Regardless of whether or not their daughter finally wakes up and like the prodigal comes home, they don't stop praying. That's why literally here we are today. And while there might not be a lot of people we would think of as a praying person, if I say a praying mama, you got a picture in your mind. Why aren't we in general more like that? See, I believe that we stop praying too soon. That too many of us, we stop praying way too soon. It's like we've got some 3-prayer maximum. And like, well, I prayed about this last week, and then I went to the prayer meeting and prayed, and now I'm praying. Maybe God just don't want to do it. I guess I'm done praying. It's like we're embarrassed to ask again. We're embarrassed. I told God about it. Why ain't he done nothing yet? That's the wrong mentality. That's the wrong perspective. Why can't we be people who been praying about it for a while, been praying for some people for a while, been praying about a situation for a while, and we don't get weary. We're going to pray without ceasing. We're going to keep showing up. Does it maybe make you feel unspiritual if you keep praying for something over time? Does it maybe make you feel like you don't have the right connection to God because you've been praying for the same thing for 6 months or 6 years or 60 years? What if your faith to keep praying was actually something God wanted to use to teach and to reach and to change someone else? See, my charge to you today and my encouragement to you is this. Would you write this down? Keep praying for the outcome, even if God is working on the others. Keep praying for your children, even if God is using your praying for your children to work on your spouse. Keep praying for that situation, even though you may not see that situation change, but God is using your faith and your fervency to challenge the friends in your life. Keep praying about what it is you believe God would want to do through you, what it is you know you need God to show up for in your life, because you don't know. Maybe he's using that praying. Maybe he's using your fervency. Maybe you're continuing to show up, and he's using that example to be a blessing to people around you. Keep praying, because God is working on others while you pray. You have no idea who is being blessed, who is being encouraged, who is being challenged, who faith is being injected in them because you keep praying. Keep praying. God is working on others. And keep praying, write this down, because God is working on it. You keep praying because not only is God working on other people, God is working on it. This woman is remarkable because she has absolutely no reason to believe that this Jewish rabbi would A, want anything to do with her, and B, come to move mountains and perform an exorcism on her daughter. That's what she wanted. But she kept believing anyway. See, this woman with her faith, this woman with her prayer, actually crossed two of the most unthinkable barriers in her day, in her petitioning of Jesus. She was a woman who approached a man in public. More than that, she was a woman who approached a Jewish rabbi in public. In that day, Jewish men did not speak to women in public. In that day, it was customary for the rabbis to only talk to their followers in public. This was a way of keeping themselves pure. It was a law put around a law, a rule put around a rule in order to protect their appearances. Where did we start? Jesus is saying you focused on the wrong thing. You think it's this external stuff that purifies you. It's what's in the heart that purifies you. And not only that, she crosses the line of Gentile to Jew. As a Gentile woman addressing a Jew. To us, when we read this story, when you heard me read it even a few moments ago, maybe you've seen this before, it seems so harsh when Jesus doesn't answer her. But that's what was expected in that day, which maybe helped her to not be deterred, but to keep asking. See, what Mark will tell us in his writing is that this woman hears about Jesus. She had never heard about him before. She hears that there's a healer. She hears that there's this rabbi who maybe can help her, and she knows she's got a need. And so she does not allow her gender, she does not allow her ethnicity to prevent her from going to the one who can help her with her request. While we are offended, we are appalled at Jesus' silence, she expected it. So she doesn't get deterred. I think sometimes we have the wrong perspective when we approach Jesus, when we come to prayer. And that's why some of us don't keep praying. We don't keep showing up. We lob our request to God, and if he doesn't do what we say, how we say it, what we want, when we want it, we get mad because we view prayer like a vending machine. Right? We think that there's only one correct answer. That when I go to the vending machine, I put money in the vending machine. And I have perused all the items on the vending machine. And I have decided what it is I want. So I put my money in and I press the button for the item that I want. And if it doesn't come out immediately, you need to understand, me and this vending machine, we got a problem. I don't know the last time you used a vending machine. The place where our offices used to be had a vending machine right at the bottom of the stairs, and I passed by it all the time. I used that vending machine from time to time. I didn't have something in my office. I needed something to drink. I needed something to eat. Rather than walk to the Walgreens or get in the car and go somewhere, sometimes I used that vending machine. I used it a lot. I supported that little vending machine. And there were times where I put my money in the vending machine, and I pressed the number, tried to get what I want, and you know what? Nothing came out. Can I tell you what happens to that vending machine when I put my money in and I press the button and nothing comes out? This may sound spiritual to you, but I lay hands on the vending machine. And then I begin to shake the vending machine. Because if I put my money in there and I ask for something, it didn't come out, I'm getting frustrated with the vending machine. I'm going to shake it. But sometimes the vending machines be crazy too. Sometimes you'll put your money in the vending machine and you'll press what you want and you'll press the button for what it is you're looking for, and all of a sudden something down here will start popping out. And it's like, what are you doing? It's like the vending machine's like, well, I gave you something. And sometimes I just kick the vending machine because I'm angry. Because this vending machine, there's only one way you can work right. If I give you my money and I press the button, then you're supposed to give me what I want when I want. Nothing else will do. Now, you can get mad at me for my childlike nature towards the vending machine, and that's all right. But that's the way most of us pray. Oh, that's the reason some of you have stopped praying about it. Instead of showing up, instead of making prayer a priority, instead of coming with fervency and coming with faith and continuing to approach the throne of God with hope and faith, believing that there's grace for you, that there's power in his hand to do what only he can do for you. When we don't get the result that we want, because we have this binary product view of praying. See, we believe we either get what we want when we want it, or we get mad at God. We either get what we want when we want it, how we ask for it, or we think God's mad at us. The problem is, for most of us, if God did what we're praying for when we asked him immediately, a lot of us would stop praying. I mean, you don't go by the vending machine unless you want something out of the vending machine. You don't just spend time with a vending machine. I never would just sit at the bottom of the stairwell just hanging out with my vending machine talking about, I just love this vending machine. I don't need nothing from you today. I just want to be with you, vending machine. Because that's goofy for a vending machine, but that's just how a lot of us treat God. How terrible would it be if God answered your prayer and you stopped praying? If God answered your prayer and you stopped seeing him as the source of your life. If you stopped leaning on him and trusting in him. See, the purpose of prayer isn't to stop praying, but for some of us, that is the outcome that we actually want. I really want to stop praying. God, just heal him. God, just give me what I want. God, just do it. God, break this addiction. God, set me free. God, provide what I need. God, I want to be done with this. We don't say it that way, but that's what we want. We really want to find ourselves in a place where we don't have to pray. What have I told you since the first week of this series? Some of you have been joining us the last couple of weeks. You've caught every installment. If you haven't, you can go back and watch them on YouTube. Listen to the podcast. But I'm continuing to regurgitate and reiterate this because in every topic, in every concept, it settles true and the same. That success is the stumbling block that we think struggle is. See, some of you, if you experience what you call success in what it is you're praying for, if you experienced it right now, if God did what you're asking for, the tragedy is some of you would stop praying. Some of you would quit calling out on God because you're not ready to handle him doing it fully. But you've got to believe by faith as you approach the throne of grace that he is working on it. So don't stop asking God, regardless of the response. Don't stop asking God, regardless of what his response is to you. I don't know what you're praying about in this season of life. I don't know what is heavy on your heart today, or this week, or this month, or the last year. I don't know what's been just carried so heavily there, but here's what I need you to know. Regardless of what the response is, don't stop praying. Don't stop praying. Don't stop asking. Don't stop believing, regardless of what the response is. If God says yes to you, that's great. Don't stop praying. If God says no to you, don't stop praying. If God says you're not ready for this right yet, don't stop praying. Keep asking. Keep believing. Because maybe he's saying no to you now because there's something that needs to change in you now before he can say yes to you. Maybe he says yes to you because you're ready for this now, and he knows that you can handle it, and it won't be you getting what you want and then you turning your back on him. He knows that an answer to your prayer isn't going to be detrimental to your faith. Don't stop asking God, regardless of the response. Can I tell you, as somebody who prays, there are things that I've been praying about for years. That honestly, some of it I'm just now starting to see. And hindsight is always 20/20. And I really believe with a little bit of maturity and a little bit of perspective that now I can see that if God would have done what I wanted in full when I asked for it initially, I wasn't ready for it. I've got some strength. I've got some maturity. I've got some muscle. I've got some determination. I got some scars and some scabs and some calluses that now I can carry the thing I was asking for before. I couldn't have carried it before. It would have killed me. And God, in his wisdom and in his grace, let me keep on asking so that my faith would grow, so that others could be blessed through my asking. But he waited to do it until I could carry it. Keep praying. You may not see what you hoped for in full. Keep praying. God may not have done everything you expected and everything you had wanted as quick as you expect. Keep praying. God is working on it. Keep praying. He's working on it. I know it doesn't add up. It doesn't look like what you thought yet. Keep praying. I know it doesn't make sense to you on this. That's okay. Keep praying. I know you hoped you'd be further along by now. Keep praying. I know you thought you'd be healed by now and you're not. Keep praying. I know you guys thought you'd be reconciled by now. Keep praying. Keep praying. God's working on it. Keep praying. He's working on others. And keep praying, because as he's working on it, you need to realize God is working on you. One of the greatest realities that happens as we pray is God's working on you. There is a work happening in this woman's faith through her interaction with Jesus. And maybe you see it, but maybe you missed it. Because some of us are just so appalled at Jesus' silence. We're frustrated by the words of the disciples who are pestered by this woman's request, that we miss the growth, and we miss the development, and we miss the change, and we miss the work that God is doing on this woman as she comes to him. See, she came to Jesus yelling and begging and pleading and, quite honestly, being annoying. I mean, she is so loud and so rambunctious and so persistent that the disciples talk to Jesus out loud in front of this woman and say, "Master, could you send this woman away?" She annoying. She bothering us. I'm kind of tired. She just, could you just tell her to go home? But that's the way she thought faith had to look. Because I told you that Mark said she had just heard about Jesus. And when she heard that maybe Jesus could help her daughter who was vexed with the devil, that she ran to him and called out, "Teacher, Son of David, help me. My daughter is demon possessed. Help me. Help me." She thought her volume, her tenacity, her veracity would somehow get the hand of God to move on her behalf. Because she thought that's what faith looked like. But she keeps believing as he doesn't respond to her, but also does not dismiss her when the disciples asked her to be dismissed. Because here are Jesus's crew. Here are his people who he's put his hand of authority on, and they're asking him to get rid of her. And he doesn't do it. He doesn't do it. He makes a statement in reply to them. But it's not a statement for her to go away. Which is one moment where her faith increases. I was only sent to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. He didn't tell me to leave, though. Maybe I'll stay. Maybe I'll keep asking. And that's what she does. But that's not the end of her growth. She decides, because she's not been dismissed, to get personal with her request. And so she comes close to him. Maybe she was hollering from across the room, yelling from across the way. Maybe she was just in the audience saying, "Lord, help me. My daughter is vexed with a devil. Help us. I need somebody. I need healing." She's moved from there to now. She realized she's not going to be pushed away, not going to be escorted out. So she gets close and kneels at his feet and pleads personally, "Lord, help me." She gets close because she knows she's not going to be shunned away. Her faith is growing. Help me. Yes, her need is in her daughter, but she is carrying the weight of this torment. Help me. I know that I'm not one of the lost sheep of the house of Israel, but you also didn't tell me to go. Help me. As she gets close, then Jesus offers that chilling remark to us. He says, "It's not right to take the children's bread and feed it to the dogs." To which, to us, on the surface, is like, why is Jesus being so derogatory? But yet, Jewish men, particularly rabbis, in that day often referred to Gentile women as dogs. Because that was the most vile thing that could be said about another person, to call them a dog. But Jesus didn't call her that dog. See, there are two words for dog. One speaks to that vile dog that's on the same level as like a pig that a Jewish person did not want around. These dogs ran wild outside the city. Jesus used a different word that really would be best translated little dog or puppy. And it's these little dogs that actually were allowed around the table. It's these little dogs, when Jewish families would feast, that they would allow to come sit up in their lap. And they would pet, and they would hold, and they would love, and they would care for, and they would revere. See, we just saw her as a dog. We didn't see her as Jesus told her, and as she was aware. Because as she got close, she not only realized through his actions that she was not going to be pushed away like she expected, but she heard through his words that she is someone that he loves. Which is why her response is so profound. You're right. But even the little dogs eat the crumbs that fall from their master's table. See, what would happen is after their plates were clean, they would allow these little dogs that they love. They would allow these puppies to sit in their lap and lick the plate clean, if you will. If there were scraps around, they would make sure these little dogs, they were so cute, they loved them so much, they would make sure that they were fed. Faith is growing. Faith is growing in this woman who thought what she needed was this massive exorcism from a rabbi. See, what you may not understand is that an exorcism performed by a Jewish rabbi was a very common request, but it was not a light request. It was not something that was going to take a moment or two. It was not something they believed could be handled by a word, but would require purification and require sacrifice and require time and require effort. And why would a Jewish rabbi go through so much for a dog? Unless he didn't see her like that. And as this woman got closer to Jesus, she began to see herself how Jesus saw her. And she came yelling and hollering and begging Jesus with all the fight that she had, "Help me, help me." She finds herself in a place after an interaction with Jesus, a totally different person, not someone who needs him to clear his schedule for a week, not someone who needs him to move heaven and earth for her, someone who is content with a crumb from his table. See, she didn't arrive with the faith that she needed, but her asking produced in her the faith that she needed. That's because faith, please write this down, isn't deposited, it's developed. The reason some of you will never experience the faith that you want in trusting God, the reason some of you will never experience your faith to be able to believe God and to trust him in various aspects of your life that feel so off limits to you, is you're waiting on a deposit when it's supposed to be developed. You're waiting on a feeling. You're waiting on a moment. You're praying a prayer, lifting a hand, trying to get yourself in some space where something will hit you, and now you'll have all the faith that you need. And God can do whatever he wants in a moment. But faith is developed. It's not deposited. See, there are some things with God where you can't circumvent the process. It's over time. It's what happens when you keep showing up that changes everything about you. This woman changed. She arrived struggling with a catastrophe and left satisfied with crumbs. See, she had this picture of what she needed, Jesus, who she just heard about to do, because she didn't know him. But the closer she got to him, the more she talked with him, the more she realized that she was loved. And not only that she was loved, but he was powerful and he saw her and he could do whatever she needed to be done. And as she saw all that he was, her request began to change as he was working on her. Not because her need changed, but her perspective of the one she was asking changed. See, a crumb wasn't all that he could give, but a crumb was all that she needed. And she realized that. That's why Jesus makes an announcement to her he makes to no one else in the scripture. You have great faith. You have great faith. Why? Because you realize the crumbs from my table are more than enough for you. You realize who I am. You realize that I love you. You realize that I'm for you. You realize, and so now you came in wanting everything, and now you realize a crumb is more than enough. So my charge to us on today is to keep praying. Not until you get all you want. Keep praying until you realize that he is all you need. Keep praying until you realize, not that you see everything you hope for happen, not until you receive everything you requested as you requested it. Keep praying until you realize that he is all you need. That a crumb from his table is more than enough for you. Because the God that you're talking to is the God who speaks, and everything that is begins to exist. It's the God who breathes, and dead things come back to life through the breath of his nostrils. He's the God who can deliver you from opposition. He's the omnipresent one. He's the omniscient one. He's the all-powerful one. And when I really see him, and I begin to grasp all that he's done and all that he can do, my faith increases, because then I know I don't need anything but a crumb from your table. See, some of you don't realize how good your God is, how much he loves you. And that's because you stopped praying. What happens when you keep praying, you keep showing up, is that you realize how powerful he is, how much he loves you, how good he is, how no matter what society has told you and no matter what sin would try to shame you with, you are loved by him. You are welcome at his table. And then all of a sudden your need didn't change, but your recognition of what you actually need from him does. And it's like, oh, I don't even need all I thought I needed. I am content with a crumb. Because that means I'm close to you. I don't know what need you have in your life, but my promise to you is this. If you'll keep praying, God will work on others through your prayers. If you keep praying, God will work on it through your praying. If you'll keep praying, God will work on you through your praying. And he will do exactly what he needs to do for you. Father, I thank you today for loving us, for drawing us close, for never giving up on us, never quitting on us. Father, build in us the faith to keep praying, to not give up, to not be deterred, swayed, influenced by outcomes, but to keep leaning on you, keep trusting you, and knowing that you're working on it and you're working on others. And most importantly, you're working on us because we keep showing up. Father, I thank you today for work that you're doing in us, you're doing through us, you're doing around us. And I pray you fill us with faith as we keep showing up to do just that more and more. Keep showing up. Jesus, we pray all this in your name, and everybody said, amen.